for coming. Because it's such a crowded room, I would suggest we actually leave those doors open. If we find that it's too much noise, we may close them. So, sir, could you open the doors so that we have a little more air in here? Once again, if we find that it's too distracting, we'll have to suffer through, but I think that's the way to go at the moment. And once again, thank you all for coming. I know this is something that's garnered a lot of interest in our communities, and so once again, thank you for your interest that you show. You can't hear me? How about that? There's a green light. Hello? Hello? Testing? Okay, thank you for letting me know. Once again, thank you for coming. In light of all the people that are here, I think of this as a court proceeding, and as you probably know, in court proceedings, it's not permitted that people in the audience react to the evidence that's coming in. We will be receiving, hearing evidence, looking at evidence today. I would suspect that some of it you will not like and some of it you will like, but I would ask that you keep your reaction to yourself just so that we can move forward in an orderly way. So a few days ago, the parties to the proceeding submitted their proposed evidence, which consisted of videos and also documentary or documents. I've reviewed those submissions, and I have excluded some, not many, but some portions for one or more of the following reasons. In some instances, the evidence was simply not relevant. For example, 2 of the submitted videos included proceedings in the House that are not pertinent to the comments by Representative Carr made on the House floor that are the focus of this investigation. So those portions of the proceedings were excluded. Newspaper articles. In several instances, the parties submitted newspaper articles reporting primarily on the dispute at the Celtic Fox, but also on some other matters. We will see 2 videos of that dispute taken by 2 different phone videographers. So the newspaper reports about what happened at the Celtic Fox, I believe, are redundant and are not the best evidence. The videos are. So I have excluded those portions of the articles that report on what happened at the Celtic Fox. Secondly, the excluded portions of the newspaper articles are hearsay. Both federal and state evidence law views such matters as inherently unreliable and excludable. Kansas State Statute 6160 defines hearsay as, quote, a statement made other than by a witness testifying at the hearing, offered to prove the truth of the matter stated. So the newspaper article reports of what happened at the Celtic Fox are hearsay and not admissible for this additional reason. So the first being that redundant, not the best evidence. The second is they constitute hearsay. However, there is one exception to the exclusion of hearsay that pertains here. This is the exception known in Kansas evidence law as the previous statements of persons present. And this is found at Kansas Statute 6160A. That exception applies to, quote, a statement previously made by a person who is present at the hearing and available for cross-examination with respect to the statement and its subject matter, provided the statement would be admissible if made by the declarant while testifying as a witness. The rationale for this exception to the hearsay rule is that the party whose previous statement is being admitted is present in the hearing and can testify, giving him or her the opportunity to dispute the accuracy of the previous statements attributed to him or her if they wish to, or to explain them. So portions of several of the newspaper articles quote Representative Carr and therefore constitute previous statements by a party present at the hearing. They are therefore admissible under this exception. And so we have redacted some of the newspaper articles, as I said, because they contain largely hearsay. However, we have preserved or left intact quotations of Representative Carr. The parties and the committee have copies of all the documents that were submitted by the parties and the portions of the documents that I have excluded. If after the hearing today, either of the parties or a member of the committee objects to my exclusion of some pieces of submitted evidence, I ask them to email me those objections. The committee will then consider those objections in due course. So today we will be listening and reviewing video evidence and documentary evidence, as I said. And to make the presentation of this evidence flow smoothly, I have asked our technical support team to put together all of the admissible portions of the videos and documents submitted by each party in chronological order. In several instances, the parties submitted the same videos, and we will only be playing those once. I see that. I want to thank the staff for their Herculean efforts working on a tight deadline. Representative Carr.
I have an objection. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the Select Committee. My objection is that the complaint that was filed against me is inaccurate in its detail as it pertains to the Mason's Manual. The complaint information details Chapter 12, Section 121, use of disorderly words in debate. Based on the previous proceeding that took place with the exact same members of the committee, I was then requested to provide specifically what the detail and what the rule was. You stated moments ago that in the information that you received from the complainant and myself, that was accepted into the information. As a portion of that, the complainant detailed what that was, and that was Chapter 12, Section 121, use of disorderly words in debate. Mr. Self, during his explanation of the rules and the procedures, stated that the procedures provide for latitude from the chair and the committee members with respect to the proceedings. However, the rules are clearly stated in the Mason's Manual. As I said, during that preliminary portion of the proceedings, I requested the specific rule at that time so that I would know which rule was violated. I was not provided that at the time. However, since then, I have been provided that information based on the complaint information that was left by the complainant at this time. And I have provided for you, if you don't have your Mason's Manual with you, copies of pages of the Mason's Manual if I'm allowed to hand you the copies.
Sure. If you'd give them to the lady here, she'll give them to us. Thank you.
Again, if you look at the last page, the rear, the last two pages, which is the letter that came from Representative Howell, where she clearly states in point number 2, and I should have it highlighted, that Mason's Manual, section 121, use of disorderly words in debate, is what the infraction is. She's listed some other things, but those things aren't a part of the Mason's Manual, so I don't believe that this body has those in discussion. Some of those things would be items that would be taken up by law enforcement, and there was no law enforcement involved here, so none of those matter. But if I would have you look at section 121, use of disorderly words in debate, it details what must take place in order for that to be a factor. Item number 1, no member shall indulge in personalities, impugn motives of members, or use indecent or profane language. Item number 2, when disorderly words are used by a member in debate, notice should immediately be taken of them by the member objecting, and if desiring the words to be taken down, the objecting member repeat them exactly as the member believes, then to have them be spoken. And I'll pause here for just a moment. In the previous proceedings, it was made mention that it had to be in debate. If I was using section 121, 121 was specific to activities that took place during debate. I would argue that there are no activities that took place during debate, and even if there were, Mason's Manual dictates that we follow the procedure. And I'll continue. If of the option that the words are disorderly, the presiding officer should direct that the chief legislative officer take them down. I've had no words taken down. If of the option that the words are not disorderly, the proceeding officer may delay the order. If the demand is supported by additional members, the chief legislative officer should be directed to take them down. Take down the words as restarted by the objecting member. If the demand is not so supported by the objecting member, may move to have the words taken down. Again, I've had no words taken down. When words are taken down, they are part of the record. And when read to the offending member, the member may deny those words. When there's a dispute as to the words, before the question of disorderliness is voted upon, the presiding officer should first put the question, are the words written down the words spoken by the member? And again, I'll state, there were no words written down. The question of whether the words are disorderly is then submitted to the body. If the body is satisfied that the words are not disorderly, no further proceeding is necessary. If the words are found disorderly, the member using them should be permitted to explain and apologize to the body. But if the member refuses to apologize, the presiding officer may censure the member, or the body may choose to act in this case. No such action took place at any time on the House floor. When a member has been called to order for disorderly words, it is usual for the motion to be made to permit the member to explain, and if the explanation is satisfactory, it is in order and customary for the motion to be made and carried that the member be allowed to proceed in order. Again, words were never taken down. No objection was ever made. The motion should always be that the member is permitted to proceed in order and not merely to proceed. If the remarks of the member are decided to be improper, that member may not proceed if anyone objects without the permission of the body expressed by vote, upon which question no debate is allowed. There has been no vote. There have been no words that were taken down. The procedure here given is the established formal procedure for dealing with instances of disorderly conduct or disorderly words. Improper conduct of a member can be referred to a committee for investigation and report of action, and the notoriety that comes from discussion on the floor can be avoided. That's why we're here, even though none of this has taken place. And lastly, number 9, when another member has spoken or any other business has taken place since the member spoke, it is too late to take notice of any disorderly words used for the purposes of censure. I'll repeat that, number 9. When another member has spoken or any other business has taken place since the member spoke, it is too late to take notice of any disorderly words used for the purpose of censure. And that's where we are. Another member has spoke, 150 members have spoken since anything that is referenced in this particular complaint information against me that was never called down on the floor, words were never taken down, and so thereby this procedure is 100% out of order and not in line with Mason's manual. Now, the question before us is, do we make up the rules as we go, or do we abide by them as in the Mason's manual? I can state that this body, in a previous proceeding, stuck to those rules. This body provided that I stand at the well or at this podium and tell you detailed which rule was in violation. And this committee went so far as to say that in that previous proceeding that it was a particular section of that particular or individual rules violation. You know, in that instance, it was the disruption of the body. The fact that someone had approached me, that was not it. The fact that someone used disorderly language, that was not it, because that was not a part of the Mason Manual's rules. The Mason's Manual called out for disruption during debate. And this investigative body stated that because I made a statement at the latter part of what I would have considered disruption, meaning after the other member came across the floor, after the other member walked up to me, after the other member put his finger in my face, after the other member uttered profanities in my face, and after the other member walked
Excuse
away.
me, you're going beyond the objection.
Okay,
We've
well,
heard the objection.
Yeah, the objection is that we are not following the rules as stated in the Mason's Manual, and therefore, I find that this should be dismissed with prejudice.
Thank you. We'll take your objection under advisement. Today, the proceeding will proceed with the evidence. And so the next part, excuse me? Mr. Carr, there will be none of that. Do you understand?
I do understand, sir, and thank you very much for that warning.
All right. As I said, the technical support people have been so good as to try to put all of the admissible evidence, at least on a preliminary basis, on one large composite video, if you would. And so I'm going to ask that they do that. Also, there was a document that was in the back, which is called Table of Contents. And this will, I think, help to follow the video that the composite video that we're now going to hear. Yes, please. If you can start.
The Speaker recognizes Representative Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With respect to the piece of the budget that provides some funding for the Quindero Ruins project. When I first heard of it, I was glad. I know it's been some time that they've been attempting to get some funds or some funding for that particular project. Then I had to wonder, why now? What happened different this time around that now allowed for funding to be available for that particular project? Then it was brought to my attention that it may have been in exchange for a number of votes. And for those of you who don't know what the Quindero Ruins project is, it is an area where slaves from the Underground Railroad are buried. There's been a restoration planning or desire for that for quite some time, yet no funding. So as long as we're talking about,
Representative,
yes?
I would like to remind you to not impugn the motives of representatives and why they might or might not be voting for something.
Fair enough. So I'll continue.
You may continue.
Thank you, sir.
Just watch your comments.
We'll do that, sir. Continuing. I'll take you down a historical path, if that's acceptable, since we're already speaking about slaves and the ruins. There was also something that took place with those slaves. There were typically two sets of slaves. You had what was considered the field Negro and the house Negro. Most of the time, you became a house Negro because of things that you may have done, exchanges, trades that you may have made. And I'm not saying that anyone has made those trades. I'm just saying that these are trades that I personally wouldn't make. I would never sacrifice my integrity, my character, or those things that have adverse effects on my people for anything that someone may be able to offer me. And what sort of things, since I happen to be a legislator? And I'm not implying that anyone has done that, but certainly what I wouldn't trade would be a vote for something like the James Crow Esquire version of critical race theory. Nor would I sacrifice the vote for Medicaid expansion, because I know that that would certainly help those people in my district. Nor would I sacrifice the vote of those SNAP benefits, food stamps that I know will affect those people in my community. Nor,
Representative, I'm going to have to bump you back towards the bill at hand and the issues that we were talking about within the bill.
and I would object to that because this is what the bill at hand is. It is about the funding of the Underground Railroad slaves. And I'm speaking to why I would not be in support of that. Now, if you are going to cut me back, then I would suggest that you cut everyone else back here who speaks to their support of that. If I'm speaking of something that may hit a nerve with you or that you may not like, then maybe you should look within yourself for that one. Because I'm only speaking as others have spoken for reasons that are on their heart and their mind for why they are in support of or not in support of the legislation that's at hand. And at this particular time, it is a $250,000 amount associated
Representative,
with the bill.
if you keep it to the bill, then you're good to go.
Again, I wouldn't trade anything. I would never want to trade my vote, and I can't speak of my vote, is that correct? I was put here by those people that elected me to vote on their behalf. And so my message to them And a reason why I wouldn't support this is because I would never trade my vote so that those people in my neighborhood, my constituents that I support, would never have the opportunity to look at me and think that I might be one of those house Negroes. Thank you.
Thank you. So if you happen to have the table of contents in front of you, that was the first video portion of the House proceedings on April 28th, 2023. The second item on the table of contents is the transcript of those proceedings. That's not on the video, but will be made available to the public in due course. So we move on then to the third item, which is an article.
I recognize.
So this is an article entitled, yes, I called my house, my fellow black Kansas lawmaker a house Negro, and I regret nothing. And so, yes, Representative Osman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you remind this body what specific rules were addressed in the complaint itself so that as we're reviewing this evidence, we can match it with the complaint letter?
Well, I think we can do that in due course, but among other things, the complaint alleged broad misconduct, and this is getting ahead of ourselves, but the precedent in this body going back to 1951 provides that you can look beyond any specific rule in addressing the misconduct. And then the other portions are, set forth in the complaint. So this is the article, and I'll just ask you to scroll slowly through it. As I said, the hard copy of this will be made available in due course. You can keep scrolling there to the end. Yeah, Representative Ballard, yes.
Thank you. I'd like a clarification. I'm not sure the majority of people maybe can read that on the screen. Is it too small to read unless you're right underneath it? So I guess I would suggest that we either read it out loud or just indicate, as you said, that they can pick this up and read it.
Right, it will be made available. So I think if we read these, it's going to take a long time. I guess we can do that. What does the committee think? Should we read these portions or? Okay, well then that's fine. I'll read them. Representative Carr.
You didn't admit some things that were written by news articles, and we have some news media in the building now, and I've made.
Excuse me. I explained to you, if you have an objection about the exclusions, you should email those to me after the hearing. So
okay, but
please
you stated that those quotes are my specific words, and although they may or may not be, You can't prove that from what somebody writes in a news article. They can write what they want to.
As I explained, you're here, you will testify on Thursday, and you can tell us if you disagree with the attributions that they've made to you and explain the quotes that they attribute to you.
I do understand what you're saying and where this is going. Thank you.
All right. So why don't you go to the top of the So the heading, I think everybody read. I'm an engineer by training, which means I focus on making processes and systems operate more efficiently. My challenge as a new legislator involves applying engineering principles to how our legislature has been hijacked to serve moneyed interests. So if you've followed the Kansas legislature's hijinks this session, then you have a sense for the challenges my training poses for me as I try to serve my constituents. In short, the status quo is unacceptable. Our system isn't broken. It is designed this way, and if we want a system that actually serves us, then we have to upset, object, and intervene whenever necessary. That's why I spoke so forcefully about never wanting to be viewed as the kind of legislature who'd betray my constituents. I regret nothing. What I will do is, will not do is fall silent when I see something wrong. I owe that to the late Representative Gail Finney, whose seat could you remove that on up, please? Excuse me. Okay, so I now feel my constituents. You can't move it. So this is the next, okay, I get you. We spent the bulk of the previous session debating, it's the glare, I'm not sure. Debating.
Looking at that one.
Debating, what does it say?
Issues
of human sexuality. Well,
You want me to read it?
yeah, if you can read it, I can't, the glare.
Issues that, while important to many people, aren't priorities for most struggling Kansans. Republicans who control what comes to the floor continue to push a false narrative on election security and stepped up their attacks on public education and on voting rights. I see the needs in my district. I see the inequality, in the lack of grocery stores and the dearth of wide-scale entrepreneurism. People need work. People need answers from the child welfare system. People need to know that when cancer-causing chemicals are contained in the groundwater, the information will be swiftly shared with the residents in the affected areas. People need relief from an oppressive justice system. So when a Democrat caucus member, someone supposedly upholding the shared values of the Democrat Party, voted against the constituents' needs for SNAP benefits or Medicaid expansion and supported voting suppression measures, this was problematic. These types of issues aren't new when it comes to our Black elected officials. That's the elephant in the room, but normally no one is willing to mention. We in the Black community know that there is a history of what we should term sellout behavior. It's time that we call a thing, and we can't afford to let it continue. The sacrificing of the many in exchange for the fame and fortune of one. I spoke up. I would never trade my vote so that people in my neighborhood, my constituents, would never have the opportunity to look at me and think that I might be one of those house Negroes. The Kansas City Star's mostly white editorial board said I went too far, but what we didn't hear from the Star's editorial board was anything about how Robinson's constituents were harmed by his myopic political calculations. The board has more sympathy for Robinson's feelings and for the needs of his betrayed constituents.
Excuse me, whoever's clapping will be removed immediately now from the room. The next is a May 26, 2023 letter of reprimand from Speaker and Speaker Pro Tem to Representative Carr regarding his April 28, 23 well remarks, which we just heard on the video. If that could be put up on the, okay. Once again, there's a glare. Let me try this, but this is, once again, letter from the Speaker and Speaker Pro Tem. This letter is, excuse me? Yeah, it's the glare of the light. I don't know if we can turn the lights out. Everybody could see it more easily. Okay, that helps. This letter is to express our concern over certain comments made by you during House proceedings held on April 28, 2023, related to the Quindero ruins funding authorized in Section 40 of 2023 Senate Bill Number 25. Your comments were not in conformity with the House rules on order and decorum while addressing the House, and furthermore, your comments were disorderly comments under Section 121 of the Mason's Manual of Legislative Procedures, which has been adopted by the House and governs this incident. Section 121 governs decorum in debate and provides that no member may indulge in personalities or impugn motives of the members. Under Section 121, a member using disorderly words may be censured by the presiding officer or the House. While we recognize that disagreements over policy is part of the process, proper decorum in addressing the House is essential to proper functioning of the legislative process and respect for the House. Your conduct failed to maintain proper decorum. What's that say? This letter shall serve as notice that if you use disorderly words during debate in the House in future proceedings, a complaint may be filed against you pursuant to House Rule 4901. Signed by Dan Hawkins and Blake Carpenter. And then the next is a letter in response dated May 30th, 2023 from Representative Carr. I think we're just not, I think that's going to have to wait until you see a hard copy. There's just... I have a hard copy. All right, very good. Yeah, if you could hand it up. Representative Osman. We just need one copy.
Yeah,
Take your time. Take your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Actually, we found it. Yeah, okay.
I do have a question, Mr. Chair, if I could. I realize that the rules provided allow for wide discretion as to how this proceeding is conducted, but I would ask the question, would it not be the complainant's responsibility to present the evidence to us and then for us to review the complainant's complaint as it's provided?
I'm not sure I follow your suggestion.
Would it not be best for the complainant to provide the testimony to us so that we can impartially determine what evidence is necessary based upon the complainant's presentation, rather than for the chair to provide the evidence to the rest of the panel?
I guess I mean, the evidence that's being presented was presented by the two parties, and I sent that information to everybody on the panel. And I think I explained how we were going to proceed today. This is the evidence that both parties presented, and in due course, we'll be able to review it and discuss it and decide whether it satisfies any of the, satisfies it sufficient to do something about it. And as I explained, next Thursday, or this Thursday, the two parties will be testifying, and we will also have written testimony from several other legislators and others in the body. So I think that's my ruling.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Sure. So now going on to Representative Carr's May 30th, 2023 letter. He says, this is to acknowledge receipt of your letter penned to me and dated May 26, 2023 regarding the session of open debate and that took place on the House floor April 28, 2023. My reply is as follows. Your letter is no more than a futile attempt to silence my voice as black lawmaker, which fell short of following the rules of decorum you so boldly pointed out in its body. Your description failed to directly identify a single item, word, or statement that you felt was in violation. What was the exact violation? Was it the opening where I stated, thank you, Mr. Speaker, or possibly was it the closing whereby I ended with simply thank you? Or what words did I use that were deemed disorderly? Or are you referring to all parts in between? This letter was left so open and ended with the intent to use it as a tool to, as you stated, serve notice that anything said in debate by me that makes you feel uncomfortable would be considered a rules violation. The baseless letter is nothing more than an icing on the cake of a Republican-led legislature that has failed to entertain any legislation this session that is beneficial to primarily black people. Black residents in this state are still waiting for a bill, the Crown Act, that does little more than allow black people the right to not be discriminated against for wearing their natural hair to ever make it to the House floor for debate. That's been more than 3 years waiting. How long should we wait? Your party has the right to, by rule, to handcuff legislation that benefits black residents of this state and push forward your agenda of horrible, discriminative, and hateful legislation for black people, as well as all minority groups that don't fit your definition of acceptable. However, what it does not do, nor will it ever have the right to do, is to silence the voices of us duly elected officials who use our platform to fight against the racist and discriminative behavior that takes place amongst some of our elected officials in the Kansas State House. Because these House Republican leadership-led efforts are the same as those of the legislative body earlier this year in the Tennessee State House, I'm compelled to call out publicly your racist efforts in the same fashion as those young legislators in that body. Neither my comments, my statements, my constituents, nor I will be underestimated, undervalued, or marginalized by a few members of the Republican-led House who have a difficult time dealing with someone of a minority race who does not conform to what they would like the norms to be. My statement here fosters a sense of pride only, unity, and appreciation for the progress we have made, an unwillingness to turn back, and an understanding that there is work that still lies ahead. Let this be a place and time that future generations can learn from. There are members of this legislative body who have difficulty accepting a black member of the legislature that will speak his or her mind. This is not the first time that attempts were made to silence a black representative in the Kansas legislature. Previously undeserving attempts were made to censure Representative Valdenia when for making statements that had some members of the mostly Republican legislative body feel uncomfortable. If you find yourself uncomfortable with the subject matter being debated and you feel empowered by privilege to support efforts to limit the voice of another, the question as to whether you are uncomfortable because you are racist, as my fellow colleague stated, if the shoe fits, it fits. If the shoe fits. Addressing your own discomfort with threats of future proceedings is not now and will never be the answer. Actions were no different than many other legislators who have stood in the well before me. The only difference is that I am a black legislator with no fear of introducing subject matter that might lend to a general feeling of discomfort by yourself and some other members of the legislature. The uncomfortable feeling was guilt. It is not my job to protect your feelings. It is my job to serve my people. Gentlemen, you have failed to properly adhere to Section 121, Paragraph 7 of the Mason's Manual that governs decorum in debate. If you feel strongly enough as to your accusations and you faithfully believe there was an egregious effort on my part, then no excuse for lack of a special session should suffice. I then implore you to duly exercise the procedures as directed in Section 121, Paragraph 8 of the Mason's Legislative Manual, as you chose to wait nearly a month before making this ridiculous decision to threaten me with a formal letter. I contend that you have considerable doubts as to the strength of your position, in which case I will be demanding a full and complete apology written from the same two-party letterhead and equivalently signed by both threatening parties and presented to me via email. Signed, Representative Carr. All right, so that was the Representative Amix.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and this probably isn't the time, and you can call me down if you so choose, but I want for the record to be stated, we have now received a letter from Representative Carr on May 30th, and along with that is this letter that was part of the record also, which talks about Section 121 of Mason's Manual, and also.
I might ask, is that one, was that attached, you think, to?
Well, it was in the bundle of information that we got under the original complaint.
Right, and that wasn't excluded. It was just that I didn't receive it, but yeah, so.
I just wanted to point it out. And that, and for the record, I want to state that, you know, we do have a complaint that was lodged by Representative Carr a little while ago. But I just wanted to point it out that all he has asked, and he's been pretty consistent, is, you know, the following of Section 121 in Mason's Manual, and did in fact we do that?
As I said, we'll take that up, but generally speaking, as you raise that, I would just say, as it's clear, we have our House rules and we have Mason's Manual. And so when we have that discussion later, we can talk about how they interface, right? that make sense?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just didn't want it to be forgotten.
Yeah, no, it won't be.
Nope.
Right. So attached to Representative Carr's objection was Section 121, use of disorderly words in debate, and I believe it was, yes, it was in the initial complaint. And this section, 121 of the Mason's Manual, Representative Carr in his objection earlier read the entire portion, so we've already heard that once. So we'll move on. All right, the next is a video. So there are two videos we're going to play of the Celtic Fox altercation of January 22nd, 2025. They were taken by different videographers. So I'd ask that they be played now.
I don't. If you did, I don't. If you did, you already have. Oh, who had a vote yesterday? You did. You already. Did you not see 125,000 months late? Did you not see 6 months late? And you out here in the media calling press conference? But you damn right. You not doing no work. With a check in money. You not doing no work. I did. I got a check. No work. You out here for yourself. You don't give a damn about people. Hey, you don't give a damn about people. You don't. My grand uncle died over there. Who you stepping up to? You. Like I tell you who I am. Why are you worried about you? You throwing people over there. Shit. Looking like a dumbass. No, you looking like a dumbass. No, fuck this. God is a bitch ass nigga anyway. Bitch ass what? Yeah, bitch ass nigga. That's what I call him. Yeah, do something about it. What you gonna do the work? What you gonna do? The one doing the work. It's been 6 months. It's been 6 months. 6 months, and we got a fucking plan. 6 months. What the fuck you been doing? What kind of plan you got? I got the motherfucking original money. Money. Yeah, you see a plan that don't work because it's testing don't work. Got no plan. Ain't nobody scared of your punk ass. You got to bring it on. Bring it on.
No, you already threw me off once. You don't want to hurt me, do you?
We're good. Please.
Out here lying like you see shit. No, you lying. I ain't lying about nothing. I told you last time. I ain't lying about nothing. I told you last time. Told me what? That same energy. I got the same energy. What you talking about? No, what you talking about? I got the same energy. I told you last time. I had the same energy. Ain't nobody worried about you. You ain't got to be worried about me. You better walk off, bitch ass nigga. Very good. I don't have a problem beating my elder's ass either. Yeah, well, come do it, motherfucker. No, please. Come do it, please. You better. You put your elder's ass. Bitch ass niggas. You tell me we're talking that shit. Oh, real shit? Yeah, the truth. Yeah, I see you in the truth? Yeah, the truth. You got a problem with the truth?
Okay, so that's the first video. We can go on to the next one.
You don't know what the fuck you talking about. I don't. If you did, I don't. I don't. If you did, you already have. Oh, who had a vote yesterday?
Excuse me, could you stop that? Could you tell us now what we're watching? All right, thank you.
And you out here in the media calling press conference, fuck you damn right. And you not doing no work. With a check money. You not doing no work. I did. I got a check. No work. You out here for yourself. You don't give a damn about the people. Hey, you don't give a damn about the people. You don't. My grand uncle died over there. Who you stepping up to? You. Fuck you. I tell you who I am. Why are you worried about you? Stop this. Looking like a dumbass. No, you looking like a dumbass. No, fuck this. God is a bitch ass nigga anyway. Bitch ass what? Yeah, bitch ass nigga. That's what I call you. Yeah, do something about it. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? The one doing the work. It's been 6 months. The one doing the work? It's been 6 months. 6 months? And we got a fucking plan. 6 months. What the fuck you been doing? We got a plan. Look, I got the motherfucking prison money. I got money. But you see a plan that don't work with the test. We ain't got no plan. Ain't nobody scared of your punk ass. Well, bring it on. Bring it on.
Cardi threw me off once. You don't want to hurt me, do you?
Please.
Out here lying and piece of shit. No, you lying. I ain't lying about it. I told you last time. I ain't lying about it. I told you last time. Tell me what? That same energy. I got the same energy. What you talking about? No, what you talking about? I got the same energy. I told you last time. I got the same energy. Ain't nobody worried about you. You ain't got to be worried about me. You better walk off, bitch ass nigga. Very good. I don't have a problem beating my eldest ass either. Well, come do it. Come do it, motherfucker. No, for please. Come for please, man. You better. You eldest ass. Bitch ass niggas, please. We're talking that shit. Oh, real shit? Yeah, the truth. Yeah, I see you in the truth. Yeah, the truth. You got a problem with the truth?
Thank you. The next item on the list is an article. This would be, it's titled Caught on Camera, Heated Argument Between Wichita City Councilman and Kansas Lawmaker. Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The original complaint only has a link to a singular video. Can you help me to understand, number one, which of these videos was the original video in the complaint? And then secondarily, who took the videos, if we are aware of that, of each of those videos?
Right. So as you know, there were 2 submissions by the complainant, and in her second submission, she included both videos. And at this point, we don't know. We may learn from some of the witnesses on Thursday who took the videos.
All right, thank you.
And I just point out too, if there's some dispute as to their accuracy, I think both the complainant and the defendant were present, and they can tell us if that's not an accurate representation of the videos.
Okay, thank you very much,
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Chair.
So actually, the next is an article titled Updated Video of Lawmakers' Altercation Circulating. And as I've explained, we're going to be looking at portions of this. I believe these portions are attributions to Representative Carr. Does anybody happen to have a hard copy of that? If you have that. Okay. Right. Okay, let's move on to the next one and see if it's easier to read on the screen. That would be number 9, caught on camera, heated argument between Wichita City Councilman and Kansas lawmaker. Can you make out the small? I can make out the bigger part. I can't make out the smaller part. Why don't we read the bigger part? And as I said, everybody's going to get a copy of the hard copy in due course. You want to read that, Representative?
So this is the part that's in bold, right? First of all, I'll never be the one that initiates the aggression, Carr said in an interview with Cake News. Secondly, I'm capable of defending myself and will always escalate that aggression to all match the energy with an equal or greater force. And I will always fight for those constituents that voted me here, those people that I grew up with, the family that I love. I can't say that when I use the term fight, that I would anticipate that it would become physical, but make no mistake about it. If that's what I have to do in defense of my people and my constituents, I'm prepared to go wherever it is that I need to go.
Is that the end of that article portion? Yes? Okay. All right, then the next article is the 10th on the table of contents. It's titled Kansas House Democrat Knocked to Floor in Bar Fracas Between Wichita Councilman and Legislator. And again, we're seeing portions of that. I don't think that's something that we can make out. I apologize, but once again, we'll have copies of that for the public. We'll go on to the 11th item, which is another video, and this is Representative Carr discussing the Celtic Fox incident.
Good afternoon. I stated I was going to make this video yesterday, but my computer was giving me some issues and I was unable to get that done. And so I thought I would make this video today. First thing I want to address is the incident that took place at the Celtic Fox in Topeka, Kansas. I'll start by saying this, I don't get caught up in those things that aren't the facts. So I'm not here to change your mind. I'm not here to win any new friends or lose any old ones. I'm not even here to have you choose sides on what you might believe. But again, I'm here for the facts. And I'll start with this. I've heard a lot of people referencing the idea that my colleague, who is actually a friend of mine, that got caught in the middle of this altercation, and I'm so sorry that he got caught in the middle of the altercation. However, many of us know the first rule that you should avoid when two people are engaging in a confrontation is to stay out of their way. Secondarily, I'll say, with respect to Councilman Johnson, I'm going to call him a bully. And the reason I'm going to call him a bully is that you can clearly hear the councilman state that he didn't have a problem kicking his elder's ass. Now, if we're going to be honest about it, I'm closer to Representative Helgerson's age than I am to Councilman Johnson's age. You can feel the way you want to about him, but he's a disrespectful young man. You can also see in the video that when he's engaging in a conversation with me, he raises his voice, disrespectful. He points his finger in my face, extremely disrespectful. What I'll say is, if this would have been the equivalent age version of me, he would never have had the guts to do that. But again, and you heard him say it, his elders, where is the respect for your elders? He began to get aggressive with me. And let me make a few definitions. You have the term aggressor, and then you have the term aggressive. Councilman Johnson decided that he wanted to be the aggressor. What he wasn't prepared for, and what you saw on video, is that although he was the aggressor, I could certainly be equally, if not more, aggressive. And that's what you saw. Disrespect. It's amazing to me how we will overlook certain facts simply because of personal relationships that we have with individuals and what it is that we would like to believe. We were having a conversation. At which point in the conversation, because it has been 8 months since anything has taken place, and I shouldn't say anything has taken place, but it's been 8 months and there are no matching funds. And I voiced that, and I explained to Councilman Johnson as well as Commissioner Beatty that they fucked up. It's been too long. Commissioner Beatty sat there and he had no reaction. It was, in fact, Councilman Johnson that decided at that point he would begin to raise his voice at, again, his elder. I'll use his term. He would raise his voice and then proceed to put his finger in his elder's face, and then continue to tell his elder what he would do with him. Now, what he wasn't prepared for was the fact that this particular elder won't be bullied, not by him or not by anyone. And what we lose sight of, because admittedly I keep myself in relatively decent shape and I'm well equipped to defend myself, but by no means will I be bullied by anyone. He brought an aggression to me, and I matched that energy. I'm old enough to be that young man's father. I don't care how you feel about him personally. That was very disrespectful. Let's flip the tide. Let's turn the tide. Let's say that I would have been, or I would have had that level of aggression with my colleague Henry Helgerson. Got in his face, yelled, screamed, put my finger in his face. Many of you would say, if he were to reach out and punch me straight in the face, many of you would say I deserved it. But again, oftentimes, and most certainly in my community, we overlook the facts because of emotion and the way we feel. I'm not here to change your minds. I'm only here to give you the facts. And the facts unfold with regards to that funding. Here's how the facts unfold. That effort started as far back as last February. And without getting into any great detail, we had conversations with Councilman Johnson as well as Commissioner Beatty in as far back as early March. At which point we posed the question, can you provide a $1 million match so that we can move forward? And that answer was unequivocally yes. A very confident yes. And so that was the foundation in which we began our negotiations. Whatever those negotiations looked like, at the state level, when you appropriate funds, and basically that means when you give money, when you appropriate funds, in the proviso, and a proviso is basically a bill that states that you're going to give funds. You list what the legislature is providing those funds for. That's what we call legislative intent. So the legislative intent of those funds was for medical testing and medical treatment for those people affected in the 29th and Grove or by the 29th and Grove chemical spill. It required a $1 million match. I'm sure that you'll hear many different things about the fact that they were working on a plan. There was a plan in the works. There was a plan being made. And I'll say this. Remember when they decided to put the homeless shelter there in that community? And remember the uproar that came out of the community because of the homeless shelter? They managed to put that entire thing together, the entire, I think it was several $100,000 in a matter of days. They remodeled the building and had all of that ready to go within 2 months. And I'm going to say again, 8 months. 8 months. 8 months is what it took for them to decide to make a move. And many of you remember that Councilman Johnson was out in front. He was one of the leading proponents on the homeless shelter. In other words, he made it happen. 8 months. Remember that. And I'll say this to the members of my community. Think for a moment if the councilman had been Caucasian. And I apologize for the lighting in here. It is what it is. But think for a moment if the councilman had been Caucasian and the state legislature had provided a record amount of funding. Let's be clear, $2.5 million that was appropriated for the District 84, for zip code 67214, for something other than law enforcement. It is a record. It is a historical making event that took place. And I'm proud of that as a legislator. I didn't do it alone. There are 164 other people here that had to agree with. Special thanks to my colleague Henry Helgerson, who led the efforts in the Appropriations Committee, along with Susan Estes, who was very instrumental in these efforts, being that she is a Republican. And she assisted in the efforts, not only of just the Democrats, but in the efforts that went into this funding for the underserved, the most underserved community in the city. Again, 8 months. Now, I jotted down a little timeline just so that some of you would get a better understanding of what took place. So in March, February, March is when the conversation initiated. We finalized it in March. We made it official, and when I say we, I mean here at the State House. We made it official in April. There was a Zoom meeting in May that many people attended, not just state and local officials, but Ajane Bennett was in the meeting, several other people. And at that meeting, the question was posed again. Can you come up with the $1 million match? And the answer again was unequivocally yes. Now the fiscal year for the legislature runs from July 1 until June 30. The money was there July 1. There was minor amount of back and forth with respect to which department the memorandum of agreement was to go to. And a memorandum of agreement is a document that was provided by the state to the local municipalities, and someone has to sign it to take responsibility for the funds. That became an issue. Now, many of you can remember a short time ago, there was $500,000 that was spent at the city level to purchase restrooms. That was $500,000. There was a piece of artwork that you're well aware of that the city spent over $1 million for that. My question is, those items were on the council's agenda. Why is it that this item, that's a medical issue for those people in the underserved community, 67214, predominantly African American, why did it never make the council or the commission's agenda? Again, this is prior to the funds being made available by the state. We knew they were coming. We just had to wait for the fiscal year. July 1st, the beginning of the fiscal year, and no matching money. You'll hear stories about plans that were in action to determine the best way to utilize the funds. I don't have any issue with those plans, but the money's there. Come up with your match and let's start testing. Two things can be true. You can do two things at one time. Chewing gum and walking is something that we're all capable of doing. So two things can be true. You could have provided those funds to the community, to the people in that community, so that they could get tested and any further medical treatment that they needed while you were working on a plan. And if your plan was to purchase equipment, you could have purchased the equipment from the $1 million match that you had failed to put up. And this goes for the city and the county, because nobody stepped up. Nobody stepped to the plate but the state. The state had money waiting, and because of a failure at the city and the county level, nobody was taking advantage of it. I could speculate many reasons why. In fact, if I talk to you personally, I'll share those. But this isn't the place for that. I'm just stating the facts. These are facts. I met with Commissioner Beatty in August, for a completely separate reason. At that time, I posed the question, where's the money? He assured me that they didn't have it all, but they, through the help of the Kansas Health Foundation, they had a portion of it, and they would be rolling out a plan here just immediately, and I would get an email invite to go to a meeting. That subsequent invite came. The meeting was in September. We arrived at the meeting in September. At that time, we were made aware of this plan that they had in place to purchase equipment with the state's money. And I made it very clear at that time, when the state appropriates money, there's a term called legislative intent. And basically that means that if you say you're going to spend the money on Coca-Cola, you can't take the money and buy Pepsi. It's very clear. There was no legislative intent to purchase equipment. Now, that's not to say that those changes couldn't be made, but in order to make those changes, we would have to go back to the entire body of 165 legislators, and the majority of them would have to agree again to do something different with that money. We didn't have that kind of time if we wanted to use this money within the fiscal year, because we don't go back in session until January. So we closed that meeting. I told them to go figure out a way that they were going to get the money and then contact us back, because there's no reason to discuss a plan when there's no money in the plan and they can't access the state's money until they provide the match. They told me they would contact me in a week. That wasn't true. A week went by, 2 weeks went by, 3 weeks went by. And so as what I consider a power move, I decided that I would call a press conference. I would present a check to KDHE for the $2.5 million so that the news media would let the people know that this money is available to you. But for whatever reason, it's being held up at the local level. That is the point in which Councilman Johnson was upset. He has been upset since then, and that's simply because I turned the light on. I turned the light on and I let everybody know that this money's here. So let me say this. Again, if there was a Caucasian member of local government and you had this information in hand, and you can double check any of this. In fact, there's a reporter, Celia Hack from KMUW, and she's been taking these chronological notes as well as writing stories about this the entire time. In fact, she had another story that was coming out Friday, the week before the city council decided to make it an agenda item. She called me prior to that, and she said she wanted to double check with me to see if anything had changed. I told her no. She also told me that she was going to double check with Councilman Johnson and inform him that she was going to print this story, and the story was going to say that the city has still failed to act. The matching funds were still not there. She called me later, and she said that Councilman Johnson informed her that it would be on the city council's agenda the coming Tuesday. She then said she required proof because she'd been told things like that in the past and they hadn't happened. And so, just being a good journalist, she wanted proof. The following day, the councilman sent her the agenda for Tuesday, and it was an agenda item. And the city council was going to provide $125,000. Quite a bit less than the $1 million match, but at least it was something. And the way this proviso was written, that we would match dollar for dollar. So as they provided $10, then we would match $10 up until the first million. And then after the first million was utilized, then we would kick in the remaining $1.5 million from the state. So at this point, there hasn't been a single dime. We are technically 7.5 months beyond when the fiscal year starts. And they finally decide to make it an agenda item. We find out that it states where the funds come from. Those funds have been in that particular account with the city since 2019. So the choice to use the funds today, that choice could have been made back in July. It's my understanding that they were attempting to get the funding from somewhere else, and that hadn't worked out. But again, two things can be done at the same time. Why then was it not an agenda item earlier? And then I asked the question again. If Councilman Johnson was Caucasian, how then would the community have felt about all of this political jockeying, whatever you want to call it, how then would that have been received in my community by my constituents? I just don't happen to discriminate when it comes to the rights of my people. Nobody gets a pass. Nobody. I'm not saying that in this particular case, it's a all skin folk ain't kinfolk situation, but I don't know, and it doesn't matter. Those monies should have been available to the constituency, to the citizens in that community that are affected by the chemical spill. Should have been available back in July. But again, here we are in January, and there's a reporter that is, again, making I won't say a threat, but a statement that there'll be a follow-up story, and then the council decides to move. And again, I'm not letting the county commission off the hook either, because they were in this collectively. So both sides were in this. They were both responsible, and nothing had been done. There was actually a meeting in in November, shortly before we came into session, where it was a partial in-person meeting, a partial Zoom meeting, and the county manager was there. Myself, Representative O'Hobson, Representative Estes, we all made it very clear at that time that if we didn't utilize the funds and begin testing, that the funds were in jeopardy of being lost. And based on our initial plan that actually requested $6 million, or seven, or closer to $7 million, $7 million. And we told the legislature that what we would do is we would accept the total of the 3.5 now, and we would come back and legislate again for any additional funding that might be required, depending on how much of the funds we had left. And that was going to take place in January, because that's when our session is, in January. So when January came around and we hadn't spent a nickel, there was absolutely no money gone. It would be ludicrous to then go in and say, hey, we need additional money because we've spent $0.00. So, and I expressed that at every juncture, every time we met, every time I would see either of them, every phone call. You know, we have to get this money moving and get this money spent if we're going to get some more. And remember, this is a record amount of money. We've never given this large of a figure to the underserved community, and predominantly zip code 67214, for anything other than some sort of a law enforcement effort, or something to keep the proverbial governmental thumb on those individuals that live in that community. So that, in fact, is the background. You can draw your own conclusions, make your own decisions. I'm only providing the facts. And again, the fact regarding the incident in Topeka is there was a young man who attempted to bully someone, and again, his elder. Those are his terms. Those are his words. You heard him. And then what you saw was his elder who just wasn't having it. Not yesterday, not today, and not tomorrow. Again, it's very unfortunate that my colleague made an effort to intervene. And when I pushed him aside, He stumbled over the leg of the table and fell, but rest assured that me and my colleague were on the same page, on the same accord when we went there to the Celtic Fox to have that discussion, and we're still on the same accord now. There are no ill feelings. He's checked on me several times. I've checked on him several times. He's going to be okay, and I have his full support. The questions I leave you with, no matter how you feel about either individual, there was an attempt to bully someone, his elder. You may feel like he's an exceptional guy, and I'm sure in many ways that he is. But this elder's not having it. You start something, I will escort you to the finish line. I'm still very capable. And had he had the respect that he should have, there would have been no yelling, no screaming. Again, Commissioner Beatty was sitting right there. That's not the response that I got out of him. Sure, I used foul language. I said to both of them, you fucked up. The councilman decided, because he's had some bottled up anger and aggression towards me, and I understand that. He displayed some of that anger and aggression via text message in a group chat, where it was met again with an equal, if not greater amount of aggression. This is what you'll get from me if you decide to threaten me. That was a threat, an aggressive act. I responded. If anyone has any questions, I'm always open. I just thought it was time for people to have the unmitigated facts of what took place here, and two things can be true and two things can happen at the same time. Had this been a Caucasian individual who was hampering funds from entering in our community, the response would be different. We need to, as a community, focus on those things that are most beneficial to us. And as for the news media, I'll close with this. Why was this a greater story than the spill? Why do I have, quite honestly, almost every news station in the state, certainly here in the capital, in the city of Wichita, willing or desiring a story when the story should be about the birth weight rates that are some of the lowest in the entire nation in that chemical spill plume, about the cancer rates that are at least double anywhere else in the state. And if we had data that showed that it was just within that plume, I'm sure that those rates would be 10 times greater, not just double, 10 times greater. Why are these not the stories? Why was it not a story when the legislature passed a historic amount of funding for the African-American community, predominantly African-American community, for health services that would have been assisted by the state with a historical amount of money, and the local municipalities were required to match, but no one did? Go check the agendas. Don't take my word for it. Fiscal year begins July 1. Check the agenda of the city council, check the agenda of the county commission, and no one ever put it on the agenda. But you'll find many other things that were on that agenda. And if it's not an agenda item, I'm going to say that you don't think it's important. I'm going to say that you made a decision that purchasing a $500,000 bathroom was more important than providing medical treatment, medical services, and testing for those people in my community. Thank you for your time. I've got a meeting that I'm late for now, and I'll close here. Love you all. And again, I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm just giving you the facts.
Right, thank you. So the next is a document. It's a letter of warning and an action plan from the minority party leadership following the Celtic Fox incident. Yep. And it reads, it's dated January 31, 2025. It's on the letterhead of Brandon Woodard, the House Democratic leader, Representative Ford Carr. As a result of the incident that occurred on Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025, at a Wichita delegation legislative reception between Representative Ford Carr and Wichita City Councilman Brandon Johnson, as well as the physical altercation involving Representative Henry Helgerson, the House Democratic leadership team has decided on the following action plan. 1, there will not be a complaint filed against you through Article 49, reprimand, censure, or expulsion of members of the rules of the Kansas House of Representatives. 2, should a future public incident occur, there will be a complaint filed using Rule 4901. Assistant Minority Leader, this is 3, Assistant Minority Leader Mike Amex has been appointed as an official mentor for Representative Ford Carr. Number 4, your committee assignments will remain the same, but you have been relieved of your ranking minority member positions effective Monday, February 3rd, 2025. Number 5, when asked by members of the press, the House Democratic leadership team will refer to this matter as an internal matter that has been dealt with. Signed by Brandon Woodard, House Democratic leader, Representative Joe Ella Hoya, the House Democratic Whip, Representative Jerry Stogstill, the House Democratic Agenda Chair, Representative Mike Amex, Assistant House Democratic Leader, Representative Barbara Ballard, House Democratic Caucus Chair, and Representative Dan Osman, House Democratic Policy Chair. Thank you. This is dated January 31, 2025. All right, then the next is another video. Representative Carr discussing the altercation again and the action plan that I just read.
I thought I'd take a minute to make a short video. I'm going to start doing more of these just so that people understand what the legislative process is at the state. It's definitely different than it is at the local level. Something I said I was going to do last year, and I'm just finally getting around to it this year. First, let me get a little follow-up on, the incident that took place. I've been getting questions, people have been asking, hey, I heard that they kicked you off committee or something like that. And let me clarify that. So, I was put on those committees back in December. The incident in question was in January. In December, for various other reasons, I elected not to be the ranking minority on either one of those committees. I sent emails, I sent text messages saying that I wasn't interested in doing that and I wasn't going to do that. However, because of the pressure that, to be perfectly honest, that the media put on, what we consider our Democratic leadership, they decided that they would try to frame it as if they were providing some disciplinary action. And either in this video
or on my Facebook page. I'll provide you with receipts, copies of the emails, copies of the text messages with dates included. The reality is I turned those positions down over a month before the incident ever took place. So, that's what we call, where I come from, that's just some bullshit. Secondarily, let's talk about, where the money is now. A lot of people, they question what took place, the antics, they didn't understand why, but let me say this, it worked. First there was no money, now we have $750,000 towards the matching funds. So no matter what you believe, how you feel about it, it worked. There are things that are happening now. And so when asked the question, do you think you did the right thing, or do you apologize for what you did? No, I don't apologize for anything. With the exception of the fact that my friend and colleague, was involved physically. I don't apologize for any of that. It worked, right? There are things that are happening now. So let's talk about what I thought was happening with the money, or what the holdup was. Many of you know certain members of the Wichita City Council, have been very instrumental in applying grant funds and providing grant funds for those people that they know. And it's my opinion, and this is just an opinion, but it's my opinion that they were attempting to take the funds, create a grant process so that those people that normally get the grants, and I don't have to tell you, you know who they are, so that they could apply for those grant funds, and then they would then be in control of those dollars. I'll just say this, keep an eye on the money, keep an eye on the grant funds. The state didn't set anything up based on a grant process. The state simply set it up so that the constituents of my district, those people that live in the plume, anyone who lived in the plume or visited the plume, had access to the plume, so that those people could have medical testing and medical care. There was absolutely nothing to do with any grant programming. A lot of you have asked, well, why didn't Union Pacific put up money? Union Pacific did put up money. They put up money for certain things, and those things were allocated to some of those same principles that are normally engaged in grant processes. I won't get involved in that. You can go ask your own questions. I have my own opinions, which is why we're having this conversation in the first place, because my opinions and my concerns are for my constituency and for those people that I represent. Also, I made a post about the HBCU. That's now on the table, but I'm going to need your support. I can't tell you when, because we don't control the legislative process in the State House. And when I say we, I mean the Democratic Party. Again, I'll have some follow-up videos that give better explanations of how the political process operates at the state level, but we don't control anything. So I can't tell you when it's upcoming, but what I can tell you is that I desperately need your support. For all those people that show up in Riverside Park, and there's a lot of them. You know who you are. I need you to show up at the State House when this HBCU IDA comes up on the agenda. We need to show some real support in our community. And I'll close with this. This being Black History Month, there are many of you that walk around with, let's say, Malcolm X t-shirts on, by any means necessary. For any of you that have an issue with the way you believe that I handle things, by any means necessary. And I'm telling you that it works. So if you're walking around with those shirts on and you still feel some type of way, take them off, because you don't mean what you say. Love y'all. Have a blessed day.
So the next item is a video of Representative Carr's comments on the floor of February 20, 2025. However, the next document, we're trying to do this in chronological order, and the next document actually precedes that, and that it is the Representative Carr's "I'm up for the fight" document. So we're going to read that, or look at that. It's on Representative Ford Carr's stationery, and it's headed, "I'm up for a fight, are you?" There's a saying that a lie can travel halfway around the world before the truth has even tied its shoes. You'd need look no further than news media reports on my committee assignments to find the durability of that statement. I was not, quote unquote, removed from my committee assignments. I did not, quote unquote, lose my committee assignments. I sought this separation weeks ago for myriad reasons, including my party's brand of vapid party leadership that I could no longer stomach. When headlines surfaced, the House Minority Leader Brandon Woodard, quote, removed, close quote, me from my leadership positions, and then linked that the removal to a public argument I had over concern for my constituents, I wanted to set the record straight. Leadership issued a disingenuous statement to the press on January 31 to convince them that some level of disciplinary action had been taken against me, when in fact my request for the voluntary action had been provided more than 30 days prior. I have screenshots from December where I sought removal from those committees, but was told no by Woodard. For Woodard to leave reporters with the impression that he'd remove me should cause deep concerns with news media, constituents, and the party officials about Woodard's deliberate dishonesty. These issues run deeper than Kansas politics, however. What is wrong with the Democratic Party of which I am a member? Question. Where do I begin? I've said since my arrival in Topeka that the party doesn't know how to fight. It is apparent that the presidential election did not work out as we Democrats had planned, but what of our local and state elections? Our party not only failed to eliminate the supermajority, but in fact watched Republicans pad that majority. I believe that when you get hit, you should hit back twice as hard. At this point, my philosophy should be clear on more than one level. The optics of hitting back may not be the most pleasant, but someone somewhere in this party must summon the courage to do more, risk more, and fight harder than we have. We must stand our ground rather than weakly wagging our fingers and declaring shame on you. This message should be coming from our leadership team, but our leadership seems more governed by fear of what the other side of the aisle is going to do, fear of what the other side of the aisle will say, fear of what people will think if we get down and dirty, even when the situation calls for it. Just today on the House floor, comments were made that hypothetically directed a sitting Republican representative by another to fire a weapon at a former sitting Democratic representative. When questioned as to what the action should be taken, the response from the Democratic leadership was a simple, any member can file a complaint at any time. Absolutely unnecessary from our leaders. This is the disconnect my party has in this state and nationwide. Our constituents want us to fight harder. My passion for my constituents and my love for the communities that I represent won't allow me to cower. The time to go high when they go low has passed. When they go low, introduce their and then dollar signs to the basement. Our constituents deserve nothing less. Signed, Representative Ford Carr, February 13, 2025. All right, now we'll go on to the comments? Yes, Representative Osman. Yeah, no, right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to make a comment with regards to, I don't know when we're going to get to it, but item number 16, office assignments and emails. I don't know if you've redacted some portions, but there is some personal information included in that is probably not for public consumption.
Okay. Thank you for raising that with me. I think we're not going to get to that today, and we can discuss that, and then when we come back Thursday, we'll figure out what we should do with that document. The reason we're not going to get to it is that we're on the House floor in a few minutes, so I thought we would do one more item, and then we would recess. That make sense, everybody on the committee? Okay. So the video now that we're going to hear is number 14 on the list, and that is February 20th, 2025, Representative Carr's comments on the floor of the House.
Recognizes Representative Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the carrier of the bill stand for question?
I'll give it a try. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carrier. It's good to see that there are some members of the Republican Party that are either not racist enough that they don't mind coming to answer my questions, or not so fearful they wouldn't either. Do you feel, sir, that we had properly vetted these bills and we had an ample opportunity?
Recognizes Representative Carr.
Would the carrier of the bill stand for question?
I'll give it a try. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carrier. It's good to see that there are some members of the Republican Party that are either not racist enough that they don't mind coming to answer my questions, or not so fearful they wouldn't either. Do you feel, sir, that we had properly vetted these bills and we had an ample opportunity?
Yeah, I think that's the extent of that one. All right, so we have gone through the first 15 items now, and as I said, we're on the floor in about 2 minutes, so I'm going to take a recess. Our next hearing or meeting will be on Thursday at noon, and I will attempt to get a larger room for that. And we will continue with the items listed here, and we will also be hearing from the two parties. Thank you. We're adjourned.